Hi, my name's Cheryl, and I want to thank the center for being so generous and touching so many hearts, even from 6,000 miles away in Spain. I've been able to take what I've learned from the center and the videos online, on podcasts, and share it with a group of women over here, spreading the love and spreading all that you have touched us with. So I thank you, I love you, and someday I'll come to the center and meet you all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Louis, and I love the Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa because it is a place I go where I truly feel like I belong.
Jade, and I'm 15 years old, and something that I love about the center is that you get to be yourself and you won't be judged by something that you can't control or that you are, and you just really get to be yourself and not have anybody judge you.
Awesome. That's perfect.
Acceptance, love, encouragement, and support have been key in my spiritual development, and these have all been abundantly available at the center. I love the center.
Oh my gosh, you guys are too cute. Okay, go for it.
Hello, my name is Miranda. Hello, my name is Maya. And my favorite thing about the center is I get to draw pictures and I get to learn about stuff. My favorite thing about the center is I get to learn about love and learn about God.
You said go.
Hi, my name is Miles, and what I like about the center is crafting and the prayer.
Good morning, beautiful people of the center. I am really enjoying this book, The Power of Personal Storytelling, because there is so much in it that is about the spiritual journey, not so much about becoming a storyteller, although that's in there too. But you can read this as a manual for how to live a spiritual life. Just the quotes alone in the margins are so helpful. I brought one of them with me because it relates to us very much, and it goes like this. Something like that. The sine qua non, the essential ingredient of storytelling is human mutuality, human connection, and the wish for that. When people lose those things, they lose themselves. Whoa. Human connection and human mutuality in today's world is a little frayed around the edges. We have the illusion of being more connected than we ever have been. It's an illusion. Because the reality tells a different story. You can see it. You can see it in such places as the comments sections on the local newspaper online. You go to the comment section and read the comments, and you will see there that sometimes people, when they have the perceived safety of being behind a screen, and what goes with that is this sense of separation. Then there's no connection between the comment and the person, and then there's this inclination in our culture for people to say things in a deeply careless way, dangerous way. And so we are showing up in this connected society that we have as a people who may have lost something. Our mutuality, our caring. A friend and I were talking about it, and he said, how about this for an exercise? Why don't you go to a really controversial article and print out all the comments and then read them out loud as if you were reading them to somebody you care about? I did it. And I imagined I was talking to one of you. It was heartbreaking. Just to think about or to imagine talking like that to a child. And yet it's out there, so much out there, because there's that disconnect. No mutuality. I don't really know who you are, so I can say anything to you. Oh. Our board of trustees, who meets every single month on our behalf to do the business of this center, not only do they meet monthly for the business, but also a second time every single month, they sit together for an hour and a half in a practice of deep listening to each other. It's called dialogue, but it really is a sharing space in which any person can talk about anything that is on their heart, whether it has to do with business or this or that. And here's what we've discovered, is that when I know what's alive in you, I can't stop loving you. If I know that your heart is broken, or your pet passed away, or that you have conflict with parents, or that you just got a great book deal, or you lost a job, I can't help but experience that mutuality and care and concern. When I start to know your story, I'm going to fall in love with you. I'm going to. And so we have learned from this practice that it's easier for us to do the business of the center in an open-hearted way when we care about each other. We've learned that to witness each other is to deeply understand each other, to listen. Stories, the author tells us in this book, help us to remember, help us to reconnect to each other and also to those who went before us, to remember who went before us. Because that's one of the things that's easy to forget. Who went before us? There were other people here before us. To forget the contributions that they made so that this is possible. Whatever this is. Sometimes people will say to me, "Oh, Edward, we don't know what will happen if you leave." And I ask them, who was the previous minister? Some of them know. Fewer and fewer. If you've been here for 20 plus years, then you know. If they do know, I sometimes say, and who was the minister before that? They don't know. And the minister before that? Don't know. Who was the first minister? Don't know. Who was the first council that sat and conceived of this? Don't know. Do you know why we call our chapel the Grinton Chapel? It's a name of an important person in our history. Indeed, if you go to any of our classrooms up in the balcony or in the other places, you'll see each of the room, although we call them for shorthand, room 1, room 2, room 8, they each have a name. The Lorne Grinton Chapel, the Apps room, the Leo room, because these are all the names of the previous pastors. And if you step into the room, you'll see there is a short story about that person's life and contribution, so that we will have that heritage for us. The next time you're in there, step in and look and read. Reverend Marilyn Mooney put it together for us so that we would know that in this history of 60 years that we've traveled, that there were other people here before us that made the way clear. It started 60 years ago in a living room on Clark Street. And a small group of people got together because they had heard about and fell in love with this new idea, this new teaching that says there is a power in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it to bring more aliveness, more connection, more joy into your life. And they thought it to be so important that it was worth sharing. So they sat in the living room, a few of them, and they listened to audio recordings, reel-to-reel recordings of speakers from Southern California, from Los Angeles, until they could gather up enough interest, and a larger group sat together, and then they pooled their resources until they had enough funds to hire a speaker to come up every now and then from Southern California, until eventually they incorporated and were able to become an organization. They were fueled by this vision. I feel this tremendous gratitude to those pioneers. Their intention was to bring all of this to us. And I'm imagining them sitting there, it's my version of the story, sitting there saying, this is worth supporting. This is good. This is important. I want to be part of its survival. And we've got records from all of that time. back there. And there were times when the president of the board paid for the guest speaker out of his pocket, because that's all the resources that were available. And as they sat there, I'm imagining that they probably couldn't imagine how this would happen. They probably couldn't track all the points that had to rise up for this path to be. They probably couldn't imagine us here. But the energy of their intention, they began with the end in mind to share this philosophy, and that drew them forward and us to them. And here we are the result of the intention of some people who sat together 60 years ago. And it's how I felt when I arrived here 20 years ago, when I walked into the community, and I felt that deep sense of value. Something here said to me, I want to be part of making this exist, helping it to exist. I want to be part of that. I want to invest in that. And my story starts obviously long before I walked in, long before those 20 years. I also started with the end in mind. I had this idea that I somehow wanted to be involved in spirituality, and I wanted to share a message with the world, but I just didn't know how it would come to pass. I didn't know what steps to take. But I remember being taught that whatever you are intending now is creating something for your life and for everybody else around you. I remember that, so I stayed with it. And I shared with you last week, I walked into my first Center for Spiritual Living in Burbank, and I had that sense of deep soul recognition that I don't believe I've ever had before. I knew it was for me. Oh, and the minister, she was beautiful. She was amazing, and I was enthralled. And I went up to her afterwards and said, I want your job. And she said to me, oh, honey, they all do. You see, what was happening was the birth of an intention and the growing, the opening of the energy that would take me on a path that I couldn't map out. I didn't know the steps or where to go, and she helped me. She said, you got to start taking classes. So I did. I started taking classes. I got a little frustrated because I couldn't see the end. It seemed like so many classes to take and so few opportunities. And I remember sitting one day in a dead-end job in a word processing cubicle. Remember those? And I stopped typing for a moment, and I remembered that idea of intentionality. And I pulled out a piece of paper, and I started to draw pictures on it to represent my intention. I drew a picture of a V-shaped lectern, transparent, and I put it in the corner of a stage. And I drew the Science of Mind symbol on the front of it, and I put flowers on it, and I wrote across the bottom of the stage, I am a successful speaker, an author, and I travel and teach. And as I wrote the words, I knew I had no idea how that would ever come to pass. It seemed so outrageously far-fetched. Still not knowing which way to go, I carried on putting myself through school, enrolled in ministerial school. 7 days a week I worked in Hollywood during the day, and then 5 nights a week I went to school, to ministerial school, until finally I graduated a minister and said, now what? It's not like there was a plethora of job opportunities. I wondered what I would do. And it came to pass that in a land far away, Pacific Grove, where our national conference was taking place, I went to attend the conference, and I heard that there was a large center who was looking for a minister. Center somewhere. I didn't know where it was. I didn't even know where Santa Rosa was. Anyway, I didn't really think too much of it, because here I was, just graduated. And a friend of mine said, we should go into the open house. And I said, and he literally dragged me into the open house where the Santa Rosa Center for Spiritual Living was, looking and meeting with ministers. It was like a feeding frenzy in there because every minister in the movement wanted the place. You know, it's the jewel. Thought to myself, this is ridiculous. I'll never get a foot in there. But you know what? It might be a good practice for putting your resume together. Why not? What can you lose? So I did. I bought me a suit to get a fancy picture, the only suit I ever had. At the time, I got my picture, put the packet together, and I sent it off to Santa Rosa. I think that was good. That was good practice. I nearly fell off the chair when I got a call from them saying, come up to audition. I went, what? How? Well, here's how. I was actually eliminated in the first round, but somebody accidentally picked up my interview packet and listened to the tape and said, we should hear some more from this person. And so they called me and said, come on up. To candidate, that's the correct word, to candidate. So I said to myself, yeah, no, this is rigged. They've chosen somebody, right? And so they're calling up somebody that's going to be easily eliminated. So that's what I told myself. So I said, well, I'll go up. It's good practice. I'll go up and I'll speak and I'll be gracious about being turned down. It's fine. So I came up with a little bit of attitude. So I said to Paul Corbett, who was here last service, who was on the search committee, as we were doing the interview, I said, do you mind if could I see the room where I'm going to speak on Sunday? He said, certainly. And he took me into the Luther Burbank Center auditorium, remember? And I nearly fell out of my own shoes, all 1,400 or however many seats there. Because you see, I will tell you a secret. I didn't put this in the application packet. I had never spoken to a group of more than 8 people. And in fact, my candidate tape that I sent up I forced my friends to come and listen to it. And so I stood there and I looked at the auditorium and I thought, what have I done? And then I looked up from my fear at the stage and I saw a long stage. In the right-hand corner was a plexiglass lectern with the Science of Mind symbol etched on the front and flowers just there. And I went, oh. And I got the job. But you see, now I'm thinking, maybe the job got me. Right? 60 years ago. Well, anyway, I started working. I loved the place right away, but I knew something was going to have to change because we were struggling, financially struggling. So a couple of years into it, we hired some consultants to have a look at our whole giving program, and they told us some great stories about the giving culture of our time. It was very valuable. They told us something that was an eye-opener and said, you know what the number one reason is why people don't give? They said it's because no one asked. Right? What an eye-opener. And then the consultants invited us on the leadership team, the board of trustees, to set the standard. And they warned us not to ask the people to do anything that we weren't willing to do ourselves. And I took that to heart. I really did. And I immediately began the shift to make the Center for Spiritual Living my primary recipient for my charitable giving. Because I was going to speak to the people. I was going to invite the people to let the center matter to them. And so I had to show that it mattered to me in my thoughts and in my actions. And it was very scary that first year to get up and ask something that had never been asked before, because I was going to get up and I was going to ask people to disclose what they intended to give the next calendar year to the center. Never been done before. But you know what? The community took it rather well. So I was sharing my anxiety with a friend because I was so nervous about it. And he said, I don't know why you're so nervous about it, because look, I'm giving already, so it's not like you're asking me to do something I'm not already doing. You just want me to write it down on a piece of paper. And so I took that in and I realized that fewer people had a problem with being asked than I had with asking. I had the block with asking, because in my mind, asking was the same as weakness. I just wanted you to intuitively, psychically know. You know that. You know how well that works. So I had to heal that. I had to learn to ask in a clean, mischief-free, superstitious-free, transparent and frank way, while I trusted people to receive the question at their own level. So now, years later, we ask every year. I'm healed. Actually, I'd like to give you an update on where we are. We began asking last week. We have received to date 290 giving intention forms, and that's about 33% of the way. May I please have your giving intention forms today? Yeah, and so interesting. Some people are pledging more than they did this year. Some people are pledging less. Some are brand new. And one asked the question, how does it work if you commit to a certain amount and you can't do it, or you get more money? What happens if your circumstances change? Well, it's not a bill. It's not a contract. You just call and say, hey, I won the lotto. Next week I'm giving you $1 million. We're okay. Or if your circumstances change, you just call the office. We handle it so beautifully and so graciously. And you know, another thing the consultants reminded us of is we knew it, but it was so good to hear it from a corporate consultant. They talked to us about the importance of gratitude, how that is the glue that holds everything together. Almost every day, every week, in our offices, we receive a note of gratitude, in particular from the nonprofit organizations we support. So I brought some of them with you from this current year's nonprofit organizations. From CASA, court-appointed special advocates. Thank you. We are doing such great things for the kids with these funds. It's to you. Balashram, thank you for your support. Your donations are very much appreciated. You touch thousands of lives every week. Thank you. It's to you. Wilmar Family Grief and Healing Center, we are grateful for your support of grieving children and their families. Such a generous community. PDI Surgery Center, thank you to everyone at the Center for Spiritual Living for helping us to provide dentistry to the low-income children of Northern California who need safe sedation for dental treatment and education to promote oral care, health. COTS, the Committee on the Shelterless. Your support of COTS is making a huge difference in breaking the cycle of homelessness for families with children and single adults. The Earl Baum Center, serving people with sight loss. Thanks again to you and your congregation. Together, we'll help more people in our community. The Launching Pad. As the spiritual leader of the Launching Pad, I want you to know how much we deeply appreciate your support. Many blessings. The Khmer Child Foundation, I'm extremely grateful for the support that Santa Rosa shows to the Khmer Child Foundation. Peace and blessings. Sonoma County Children's Village, thank you for your ongoing support to the Children's Village of Sonoma County. Russian River Empowerment Center, thank you for your generous donations to support our programs and services to at-risk and vulnerable youth and seniors in Sonoma County. Positive Images, We can't thank you enough for your contributions that make it possible for us to serve young people in our community. Food for thought. Thank you. With your help, we are providing not only food for people with HIV/AIDS, but also a nurturing and safe place for them. The essential quality of storytelling is human mutuality, human connection, and the wish for that. And when people lose those things, they lose themselves. Last week I told a story about how when we were struggling financially, we couldn't support any nonprofit organizations. We didn't have that. And how we took 0.5% from our offering and contributed it to our home office to keep the door open. And somebody misheard that. She thought I said that we took half of the offering. And she said, it just did not make any sense to my accountant mind. And I'm so glad she came and talked to me because, that clarity and that opportunity to clear up things is so valuable, because one of the things we have to strip away from the giving practice is nonsense, superstition, not just giving on faith. No, the giving practice it must make sense to me. Do you know what's another thing that must be stripped away from our giving practice? Shame. Oh, shame is the ability to block many people from participating in one of the most natural, soulful, beautiful practices that has, in my opinion, the ability to heal the whole world. Sharing. I may have told you this before. I grew up in a very, very poor family, in a very, very poor neighborhood. But I had no idea how poor we were until I got older and the other children at school could educate me. I had to learn. Because at home, when we shared, no matter how little it was that we shared, we loved the fact that we could share. It was the activity of the sharing where our focus was. We loved that. My grandmother and my mother taught me that the joy was in the activity, not in the item, or the amount, or the content. You see, when we were poor growing up and we didn't know it, then we didn't know any better. So we didn't know how to be embarrassed or ashamed of our lack. We had to learn that our tableware was inferior. We had to learn that other people got new clothes frequently. We didn't know. We had to learn how to think poor. We had to learn how to shift our focus on what we didn't have. We had to focus on what we didn't have so we could fit in. No. Sometimes at the center I run into people who will say to me, I don't have a lot right now, but I put $1 into the basket when it comes, right? And I say, thank you. And is your joy in that gift? What are you intending when you put that $1 in? What's the atmosphere of your emotion? Oh. Think about it this way. I ask them, do you take that $1 and do you put it in an envelope and put your name on it? Because your name, your signature, it is you. It stands for you. That's why we sign contracts. It represents your being and your intentionality and your commitment. Do you stand for this gift? Do you take ownership of that $1? Is your joy in it? See, I was taught at the Center for Spiritual Living, never think of yourself as someone who has nothing to contribute. Bring your joy to the table. In India, I was remembering, it's customary when you visit the temple to never arrive empty-handed. You always bring a gift. So people give at the level that is appropriate to them. Wealthy people bring money. Those people perhaps who are working in the fields, they come with a flower or some produce or something that they've made. But they come with the sense of their joy for contribution. I'm thinking about that. Your intentionality and what is it setting in motion. And I'm imagining us. Imagine if you're somebody who has absolutely nothing financially to share right now. I can imagine the scene before you come to service. To get out a piece of paper and write on it a prayer for your center, a blessing for your center, and to fold it up and put it in an envelope, and with that you're bringing your innocent joy to the table. You're participating from your innocent joy. That is worth gold. This is your center. It's not my center. And if it's a very important part of your life, why not make it known to you in your own understanding by just how you engage? You see, your intention is creating something for someone 60 years from now. We can't imagine who they will be, or what they will be facing, or where they will be meeting, or whether or not they will remember us. But for now, we can bring to the table the joy of the vision of sharing what we have benefited from so that they may also. I invite you to breathe in and sigh, letting your eyes close. Let us each one acknowledge and recognize that source from which we come, the presence, the one power that is in and through all things, in and through all creation. That power, divinity, God, or whatever we call it, is in us as understanding, creativity, love, and compassion, and so much more. And we draw upon it today so that it may re-enliven our bodies, our love, our connections, our compassion, so that we may deeply drink in the true blessing of this thing called life. In deepest gratitude for this, and for everything that follows from celebrating this way in prayer, I give thanks. And so it is.